Yes, I can.
Excellent. Can everybody hear Shin?
Yeah!
Can you see us?
Want to quickly introduce who Shin is. Shin
Sure.
is an extraordinary individual, okay? He went a few years ago to what was a volunteer experience in Honduras to help children, to see everything there and, you know, have a volunteer experience. He came back and he said, you know what, I'm going to go back there and I'm going to make a difference. And since then, he is living in Honduras. It's been now 10 years.
Wow.
10 years. Okay, Shin in 2009 was on Larry King Live and was named CNN Hero Worldwide. Okay, he is an extraordinary example of what it takes and what it is to be a humanitarian leader. And, you know, without a further ado, for us, it was a great privilege and honor to meet this young man, Shin, through Maxie, who's here today with us.
Yep.
And, you know, I want to now, you know, warm welcome to Shin. So everybody, you know, big applause.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the introduction. From here, it's all downhill. No, I'm kidding. So Marion and Scott have asked me to share my story, and I'm going to tell you guys kind of a brief synopsis of how I ended up here in Honduras, and in a little bit, I can kind of open up the floor for questions. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Great.
sounds good. Yep.
Perfect. All right. So back in 2004, I was a college student at the University of Mary Washington in Virginia. And I was kind of a bored student. I didn't really have a sense of purpose in life like so many other people in my generation. And I used to work at the campus cafeteria mopping floors, and I was a student janitor trying to pay the bills and everything. And one day at the campus, at the cafeteria, I was like looking through the tables and trying to figure out where I was going to sit down. And I saw this green flyer there, and it was a flyer that was announcing that they were looking for volunteers that were willing to go down to volunteer during winter break. So I signed up on a whim. Actually, the trip was supposed to go to Haiti that year, but we ended up going to Honduras instead. And I mean, it was a kind of a last-minute thing. All these, you know, things changed because of what had happened in Haiti. There was a coup there, and we ended up, you know, like I said, in Honduras. And kind of like maybe how Maxie and Marion and Scott end up there. Without any expectations, I signed up. I you know, when they first told me about Honduras, I could barely locate it on a map, but, you know, I looked on Google and everything, and I was fine. Well, you know, I never thought that that 10-day trip was going to change my life completely, and I came back to campus, and after that trip, I knew I had to do more. So I started to get organized, and I started real small. I went to the local dollar store and spent 50 cents buying a little plastic jar, and with the plastic jar, I went to the campus and I started collecting spare change. And all my friends and peers and classmates would walk past me, and they'd give me their nickels and dimes and quarters and everything. And during my very first campus fundraiser, I raised a whopping $23, and that was all that I raised. A little did I know what I was getting myself into. And I started organizing on campus, and I tried to get my friends involved. And, you know, I would reserve these huge, massive rooms on campus, thinking maybe like all these people are going to show up, hundreds of people. Well, during my first meeting, only 2 people showed up, and I did this whole slideshow in this like completely empty room. And, you know, we started with a very small group with just $23 in spare change. I kind of ran out of ideas at that time. I was trying to do all these bake sales and brownie sales and lemonade stands, and things weren't really working out. So I started going door to door on campus. I started going door to door in the greater city, Fredericksburg, where the campus was located. You know, just trying to see anyone that was willing to listen. A lot of people didn't open their doors. A lot of people rejected, you know, my ideas. And I kept knocking on doors. And one day, a friend of mine said, you know what, Shin, we should knock on the door of a really generous lady who lives a couple blocks away from campus. You know, she has a foundation. Maybe she can help. So with my friend and I, we went and knocked on this lady's house about 2 blocks away, and her name was Doris. And my friend and I, you know, went in the house, and she let us in, and this lady, Doris, was like, so tell me about your story. So I said, Doris, I got this big goal, you know, I'm like 21 years old. and I'm starting this nonprofit organization, and I need your help. I heard you're a philanthropist. Can you help? And she said, well, Shin, what's your goal? How much money are you trying to raise? And I said, Doris, I'm trying to raise $100,000 to get this started. And she said, that's a big goal, young man. And she asked me how much I had raised up until that point. And I said, well, $23. That's $23 I had, did a penny drive. But I told her, but I spent 50 cents on a plastic jar, and I did a 46-fold return on investment, Doris, so I'm worth investing in. And I talked to her really for just a couple of minutes, and she struck a deal with me. And she said, well, Shin, you're a really lucky man, I have a brother, he's very wealthy. He just gave me a big chunk of his fortune to give away because he's really busy running a company called Berkshire Hathaway. And my brother, Warren, happens to be the richest man on the planet, Warren Buffett. And so here I was with my buddy, we're in our, basketball shorts, in her house. Doris Buffett, who was the sister of Warren Buffett, lived 2 blocks away from campus. And here we are in her house. She's like, we're in her rooms, we're talking to her. And she says, all right, young man, you're thinking bold, you're thinking big. I like this idea. But I could give you all this money because for me it's nothing. But I don't want to do that. I want you to have to work for this. I want to give you a challenge. So she said to me, Shin, if you and your friends can go out there and raise $33,000 within the end of the school year in 2.5 months, I'll give you the $66,000 you need to reach your goal. Are you willing to do this, Shin? And I said, yes, ma'am. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to that goal. So I had 2.5 months to just go and do everything I needed to do to raise this money to meet her challenge. So I went down, I went down the list of all the different organizations on campus, the breakdancing club, the anime club, every organization you can imagine. And I went to all the different Rotary clubs and all the different high schools and elementary schools in the city and just started talking and talking and talking. And, after the very last day of school, we had raised about $10,000. We were about a third of the way, and on the very last day of school, we had a little walk organized, and, we were hoping maybe 100 people, 200 people were going to show up, but actually that event that we'd organized ended up being the biggest event that students had organized in the 100-year history of our small liberal arts school there. Thousands of people showed up, guys. I mean, people that didn't even know, where Honduras was on the map, so I had to show them. I had recently learned even myself. People wished us luck. They left us, their donations. It was kind of like a March of Dimes kind of thing that we had organized. For setup, we had 3 tables and 2 posters. That was all we had. We didn't really have a lot of resources. We were buying posters and markers with our own money, and we didn't have much of anything. Well, we didn't have a website. We didn't have PayPal. That was the year Facebook was launching, so we didn't have a lot of internet presence. So all the donations, they came in cash and checks and coins and everything. So my friends and I, there was 5 or 6 of us at that point. We're stuck there counting it all by hand. It's 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and we're still counting all the money on this plastic table. All these people are walking by. They see this little Asian guy counting a stack of money on a table. They're getting sketched out. But by 9:30 p.m., it's totally dark out, and my friend's Shin, all right, we're done counting. Do you want to know how much we raised? And I said to my friend Nick, all right, Nick, just let me know. How much did we raise? We skipped out on every class we could. We're going to fail out of school, but hey, we gave her all. So he wrote down a little number on a piece of paper with this is blue marker we had, and he flipped it over, and when I read it, it said $82,000 on it. So just a very small group of students, guys, I'm telling you, much smaller than the number of people that I'm talking to today, had hustled and hustled and hustled and did so many events and got all these people excited. And we went to Doris's house, and she congratulated us and she never thought we were going to do it, but we did. And she gave us a check for, the promised check for $66,000. And I actually thought she was going to give us one of those, huge table-sized checks, but it was kind of anticlimactic. And I know. But it was still worth the same, $66,000. So at the end, within that semester, we had raised $148,000 to launch the organization, literally within a couple of weeks. And so I said to myself, man, maybe we're on to something. I was supposed to go to medical school a year after that. And I said to myself, am I going to let this opportunity slip away? Because I think we're on to something. So I said to myself, if we can replicate this and do this again the following year, my last year in school, then this is worth pursuing. So my last year in college, we did it again, wondering if the previous year was a fluke or just beginner's luck. Well, that second year, we ended up raising $288,000 together. And not just one school was involved, and now we had 5 or 6 different universities involved. So after I graduated and started going, going to med school, which I may go one day, but, not right now, I decided to just grab onto this opportunity, this unique opportunity. I got a one-way flight to Honduras. 10 years later, I'm still here. And I would have never guessed that since the very first, campus fundraiser when we raised $23, that we were going to raise $5 million up until now. I had no idea when we started building the first school here, we're going to be building the 42nd school in Honduras this year. I mean, I had no idea any of this was going to happen. And here we are. We have a great team now. I got people like Maxie and all these amazing people, Marion and Scott, who have joined along the way. And I'm telling you guys, we set this crazy goal a couple years ago that we were going to build 1,000 schools in Honduras. And why did we get there? Well, we were having a meeting with the Ministry of Education in Honduras in the capital city of Tegucigalpa, and they said, Mr. Shin Fujiyama, there's one thing you can do to help us, and here's a list of all the villages in Honduras that need a school. And I said, well, how many schools are on the list? And it said something like 996. So I looked at my team and I said, well, I guess, guys, that means we're going to do 1,000. So since then, we're about 4% of the way towards our goal. But right now, we're building 10 schools as we speak. And every year, we're trying to build more and more. And as we build these schools, we have our amazing team from Train for Change, as you guys have heard about. They're coming down here and training the teachers that are teaching in these schools that we're building. So it's been an amazing ride, and we are continuing to grow. And I'm just thankful that I get opportunities like this to speak to like-minded people like you. So again, I live here in Honduras. We run a children's home here in a plot of land. We bought this plot of 14 acres of swampland and turned it into this village. And we built all these homes for all these people who live in a slum. We have a school that we run there. We have a children's home for street kids. We got 30 street kids that live with us, and I wake up every day and have breakfast with them, and tortillas and rice and beans, and here I am talking to you guys. So hopefully some of you guys can make it down to Honduras. We'd love to have you guys come and eat some of our Honduran burritos and dance salsa and help us build some schools and help us train our teachers.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. I kind of want to open it up right now because we have, a lot of our Rotary members here, and so just so everyone here in this moment will understand. So we have a grant that's in the works. That's Train for Change, which I'd like Maxie right now, if you can, to give a quick version so they know.
Sure. So we are in what I hope to be the last stages. We have a fully funded grant for $91,000 that will train teachers at 18 of the 42 schools that they've built so far. And the way that we do it is a 2-year, the teachers go through training, but we're empowering them, they come together, and then they go back to their schools. So that's how we're going to be able to scale up to 1,000 as we're building and laying that foundation. Those teachers then become the trainers for the next schools, and it goes all across the country.
Okay, so it's training the teachers, but also supplying materials, because they don't have any materials either. So, think of the norm in Honduras, and is most of Central and South America. You have teachers with maybe a 5th grade education, and so they're doing the best they can, but they have no idea of methodology and how to really interact with the students, and so this is what the training consists of. And then they have no materials either. So this grant should be a big boon.
When Shin's done, I'll share some more information about the next time. Hopefully, a few of our members, as well as people from the community, are invited. The next trip that I will be taking down, which will be the first week of July. So
yeah.
Just
So after we'll go into that. So just really quickly, as Shin is still here, we wanted to open it up for any questions you may have for Shin. Now is a good time. Anybody, any questions? Susan?
So Chin, how are you continuing your fundraising? Who have you who are the new resources you're going to get additional funds?
Yeah, great question, Susan. So when we first started, it was just at the University of Mary Washington, and we asked ourselves if this model could be replicated throughout all the different cities in the country. And now we have about 100 different high schools and universities involved. They bring, every year they come down to volunteer with us. They're doing bake sales and all these things throughout the country now. So, all these people are really getting behind the cause, and we have, a couple thousand volunteers just around the world doing all kinds of events for us. It really adds up. You think all these 16-year-old high school students doing bake sales, and maybe it raises $100, but if you got 1,000 schools doing $100 bake sales, I'm trying to say it really adds up. So it's pretty crazy when you do the math.
That's great.
Okay.
Okay, Maureen.
I have a question, Maureen. Do the local people also participate in helping to build the school?
Yes, absolutely. We've learned a lot over the years, and one thing we do know is that through sweat equity, as we call it, when you get the local people invested in the program, some people call it participatory development. We, from the very beginning, we get the locals invested. They are part of the decision making. They're part of doing the meetings. They organize, and they put in all the manual labor. Now we have some volunteers from abroad who come down and help out here and there, but 90% of the labor is done by the locals. All the materials are purchased locally, and all of our program directors are Honduran locals. They're Honduran nationals. We really tried to empower the people here so that they can have a sense of pride. They can have a sense of the greatest sense of buy-in and ownership for all of our projects. So it's easier said than done. There's always all kinds of problems, and sometimes there's gender equality issues here that we have to face. All kinds of stuff, just differences in culture, but we've learned a lot along the way that I'm sure Maxie can have a couple of things to say about that later on.
Thank you.
Yes, David, what are your plans beyond Honduras?
Yeah, so for right now, we are remaining in Honduras. Our focus will be in Honduras. We used to daydream about going to other parts of the world, but that's just not for us. We're just sticking to our vision of just helping Honduras. Every country's different, so there's always a learning curve when you go into a new country, and we want to be able to have a laser-like focus in one place.
Thank you.
Shin? Alan? Can you hear me? Question, can you give us a little more background on this children's home where you live? And how many kids are you taking care of? What kind of kids are these, orphans or?
Sure, yeah, so we have about 28 kids right now, and these are kids who either have been orphaned, abandoned, or abused, and some of them were trapped in a state orphanage. Basically, if you're an orphan kid or an abandoned kid here, the government, they have this pickup truck that they drive around the country, and they pick up these kids and then throw them into this concrete jail. It's pretty much a jail. They call it the state orphanage, but they look for organizations like us to open group homes, and they'll place them in group homes like ours. There's no foster care program. There's really no adoption agencies here, or the government doesn't do adoptions either. So really there's no option. Obviously we want all these kids to be with families or with foster families, but those services don't really exist here. So our kids are, they got all kinds of, they come from different situations. A lot of them come because of physical and sexual abuse, all kinds of violence, living on the streets. But, with us, they're safe, and they're all going to school. And, I get to have breakfast with them every morning. They're pretty cool kids.
The youngest one is how old, Shin?
The youngest kid is 4 years old, and our oldest kid is 18. Julio's 18. And a lot of group homes, I noticed, before I opened the group home, we visited at least 30 different projects, and we noticed a trend. Whether it's in foster care in the United States or group homes in Honduras, most kids in these systems, they get aged out. So when they reach the age 18, they get kicked out. So they get a birthday cake, and then they get an adios. It's a horrible way to start your adult life, right? And all these kids were ending up on the streets, right back to poverty. Right before they were going to cross the finish line, people stopped investing in them, and they were falling right through the cracks. And I often think of the movie, the Batman movie with Bane, the bad guy Bane. I don't know if you guys saw that movie, but the bad guy, he goes out and starts to recruit this like evil army. And who does he go to first? He goes exactly to the kids that I'm talking about, kids who age out of the group homes in Gotham City, and he starts to recruit them into the sewer system army that he has. So that's kind of like what's going on in Honduras. There's a lot of street gangs, and these street gangs, they go to the vulnerable youth. You know, the kids don't have that support structure, those families. So our kids, the oldest kid's 18, but we have a transitional housing program, and we hope to support our kids through college or vocational training. So, maybe up until they're 22, 23.
Hi. Hi, this is Aurora. How are you? You know,
I am.
with all my respects to you, you have chosen one of the most dangerous country out there.
Yeah.
How you handle that? How these people, I don't know, how when they see you that you're not from there and then you're in their country, because they usually think, they own it, right? I mean, my respects to you. I mean, it's amazing what you're doing right there.
Yeah, of course, like you said, safety is definitely a major concern here. At the height of the gang warfare that was going on here from 2009 and 2012, the civilian violent death rate was worse in Honduras than it was in Iraq and Afghanistan. So during those years, things were really crazy, and we had to have some very serious security measures. Things have calmed down a little bit. We still have to keep an eye out, but we have been very fortunate to have the support of the Honduran army. So, in some of the really dangerous neighborhoods that we go into to build schools, we have to have our team very highly secured. Of course, once we get to these places, a lot of the gang members that we encounter, they're so thankful that we're building the schools, and they come out and actually alongside us, they start helping to build the schools. And a lot of them come up to us and say, Shin, listen, we live a hard life here, and we do what we have to do because of circumstances, but that doesn't mean I want my kids to do what I'm doing. It doesn't mean I want my little sister to be doing what I'm doing. So that's why I'm here building the school for our community. So it's been interesting, I mean, we see a lot of guys like that, and fortunately, the people here have been they've showed so much gratitude and so much appreciation for our work here. It's just been there's risks and all, but the vast majority of people here, I mean, they get so excited when we go to their village and we sign a memorandum of agreement to start building. So yeah, there's some bad evil out here for sure, but hopefully we are fighting back through education.
That's good. Thank you for doing that.
How do you integrate for the future the school system that you're building into whatever is available in the country?
May I, Shin?
Yeah.
The schools,
Sure, Maxie, I'll give it to you.
They build the schools, but the schools are run by teachers that are local. It's not run by the organization. The organization runs one bilingual school, but the rest of the schools, they build it with the community and then they give it back to the community. So these teachers previously were teaching outside in bars, or maybe didn't even have any sort of structure, or they were overcrowded classrooms.
But there's no national education system.
There is. And these students, these teachers are all under the national education system. But the national education system puts them in a school and then does not support them, which is what our role
We had
is.
another question.
No,
from
that
over
was
there.
exactly my question,
Okay.
because I'm used to typically coordinate with the government or whatever institutions already exist. So I don't know about Nicaragua, but in Mexico, I've been familiar with some of those efforts that are separate, but they gotta be coordinated with the existing systems and existing workforce or the societies. How many layers of education does your system provide? I mean, kindergarten, middle, elementary, middle, high school, or technical skills, or what's?
How many grades? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the project. So out of the 42 projects that we have, some of the projects are elementary schools, others are middle schools and high schools. We're currently building a vocational school at the moment, and we're also building currently a school for children with special needs. So every project is slightly different. we ourselves, our organization, like Maxie just mentioned, we run one school ourselves, and it's an experimental school. It's a private bilingual school that we run. So that's a totally different ball game. But the rest, all the other public schools are of a variety of grades or focuses.
Katie, is the government paying for the teachers' salaries?
They're supposed to, yes, and they don't always, send the payment checks on time. But that's the idea, yes.
So, like, you just mentioned that you do have a high school. Who's teaching the high schools?
So all the schools that we build, except for the one school that our organization runs, they're all public schools. So they're all public school teachers.
That the government has trained?
Exactly, yeah.
Theoretically.
Or not.
Or not, yeah.
That they put there.
They put there.
Trained is the loose word.
Okay, what type of, do they have any higher education system in the country?
Yeah, there is, though studies say that only about 6% of the population in Honduras goes to college. And that population, that small population is only mostly in the large cities. So if you go to, parts of Honduras like where we work, I mean, pretty much it's close to 0%. But currently, they are changing the laws, and they are requiring teachers to have a bachelor's degree in education. So it hasn't been fully been put into place, but that's kind of the direction that they're taking.
A lot of teachers go to school on the weekends and in the evenings if they don't have their bachelor's.
Has the government stood in your way in any, I mean, obviously it sounds like they haven't done anything for you, but have they done anything that sort of hampers what you want to do?
That was kind of what I was bracing for when I started, the project in Honduras. All that you hear about the corruption and all that, thankfully, they haven't gotten in our way. We've tried to keep a low profile in Honduras as much as we can. The government, they help us in small ways. They help us sometimes, gives construction supplies like cinder blocks and things like that. Once in a while, they'll come with their fleet of, photographers, and they'll take as much credit as they can. It's almost comical at times, but as long as they're helping, they can do whatever they want. We stay away from politics, of course, because that stuff can quickly get dirty and go downhill. Like I said, we also get the support of the Honduran army when we are working in some of the most dangerous neighborhoods. So we're very thankful for that. They're able to help us there. It's really huge.
Is that through the government? I don't know how the military in the country works. Is it?
Yeah, the military is part of the government. So they're there with us all the time.
Nice.
What is the approximate cost or budget to build a school in US dollars?
So the cost to build one school in Honduras is more or less $25,000. It depends on the terrain. Sometimes we have to use more heavy machinery, or the land isn't straight. But more or less, it's about that.
And that's 3 buildings.
The 3 classroom, yeah. Most schools in Honduras, they're 3 classroom schools, and they'll have 3 grades in the morning and 3 grades in the afternoon.
Do you have any technology integrated into the schools?
Well, most of the schools don't have reliable electricity, so they don't have internet either. So technology hasn't been too big of a focus. In our bilingual school, yeah, we do have Wi-Fi and a set of computers in our computer lab. But beyond that school, it gets a little bit hard to get technology into the classrooms.
You speak the language?
Por supuesto.
And he's an amazing salsa dancer.
That kind of lot.
Is that it? Any other questions for Shin?
How's the podcast going?
Scott, well, thanks for asking. Actually, so when Scott was here the last time, he was one of the last people that I talked to about this idea that I had. And I know you guys are from the West Coast, and there's a guy that I listen to almost every day who's from the West Coast. His name is Tim Ferriss, and he's a really cool guy that wrote a book, The 4-Hour Work Week. He has a podcast show and everything, and I listen to his show all the time. So I started wondering, man, what if I could start a podcast show about social impact? What if I could interview all these cool people around the world who were doing this kind of stuff? maybe get their stories and deconstruct how they did it, because I sometimes feel like I'm all alone here in the jungles of Honduras. I don't get to have conversations like that, and there wasn't a podcast show out there. So I said to Scott, what do you think about this idea? Would you listen? And he said, heck yeah. So thanks to his encouragement, a couple weeks later, it was literally a couple weeks later, right? I launched, and I started interviewing all these people, other CNN heroes, people who were on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, all these best-selling authors, and people were very willing to be interviewed. So I have this show now, and all these people listen to me, and I get to interview really cool people. I'm always, I'm all about self-improvement. I should be in California, because I know that's kind of like the culture there. So that's my podcast show. It's called the Shin Fujiyama Podcast Show. It's not the most creative name, but it's easier to find if you know my name.
Oh, you're so cool. You are great.
It's good. It's really good.
Thank
So you're
you.
gonna get some followers. So any final questions? No more questions?
What is your most desperate need right now?
Our most desperate need. That is a very good question. There's always a great need, but if you guys are able to win Maxie and the team for Train for Change, when they're coming back down in the summertime, maybe we can get some resources brought down, whether they're used laptops or certain books that we want in our school. Anything like that would be really helpful.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
So just really quickly before we end, I'd like for you just to kind of explain how there's groups of people here that go from different universities and high schools to help build the schools.
Sure. So we get about 1,000 people from all over the world to come down to Honduras each year, and very similar to the Habitat for Humanity model, we partner them up with different villages, and they're out here, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, working alongside the families and the communities, and they're helping us build the schools. So it's a great time. We get a lot of high school students, families, churches, college students, professionals, all, people from all walks of life. They come down here, and they get to learn about the culture and, get to really meet the people. Get your hands dirty, and at the very last night, we get to dance a little salsa. So that's why Maxie comes.
Now, one question. Do we have, because I know primarily you start out in the East Coast, do we have universities like, let's say, San Diego State, University of San Diego, UCSD, UCLA? How is the representation on the west side?
So I'm trying my best to get things, really fired up on the West Coast. So actually, in about 2 or 3 weeks, I'm heading down to Sacramento. I'm going to speak to a number of different churches and organizations and universities in that area. UC Davis, Sac State, all those schools. So we don't have a presence in San Diego yet, but if you know of anyone in San Diego that'll be willing to host me for maybe a week or two, I could go on a huge campaign and talk to as many places as I can to get things fired up.
I think that's the next step.
Come on down.
We gotta make it happen. All right, well.
I have plenty of room.
Yes. So thank you again, Shin, so much for your time, for having the opportunity to connect with our members here. I think it's so valuable having this opportunity to ask questions, get answers. And again, we're so happy, after visiting, Scott, myself, Maxie, multiple times, Maxie, because she's, goes many times during the year. I mean, if you see these kids, the people, how happy they are, like, I start crying, but I tell Scott it's like crying of happiness, of joy, because these kids now are having an opportunity. The lowest bottom, the kids that they said, the marginalized, that are not going to have anything, those are the kids now that are getting the best education. And so I want to thank you so much, Shin, because what you're doing is life-changing. And you're, in essence, as Aurora said, sacrificing your life in many ways. You could be right now doing other things, but yet again, you're there. And I know you're there because of that feeling. And I'm sure, one school at a time, but the impact is just tremendous. So again, thank you, Shin.
No, thank you. And thank you so much for visiting, guys. I hope each and every one of you can come and see our projects one day with Maxie or with anyone else. And I just want to make a quick promise to you all. I know that one day, I tell this to all my friends, one day you guys are going to get an email from me, and I'm going to look like maybe like Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid, old and, you know, wrinkly and with gray hair. But I'm going to have a video message in the email, and I'm going to say, guys, remember that day when I made you this promise, and I'm going to move to the side, and I'm going to show you guys behind me, school number 1000. School number 1000 is going to be right there behind me. I'm going to have a cane in my hand, whatever it is, I'm going to be wobbling with a cane in my hand, but I promise to you guys that we're going to get there, and you're going to get that email from me.
That's right. All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Shin. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Buenas
See you guys soon in
noches.
Honduras.
Buenas noches.
I'll see you when you come into San Diego.
We should get him here for the dances.
Bye.
He would,
I'm serious.
I know.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Let me know.
again, you know, it's such an amazing